The first reading from the prophet Micah is from his prophecy that's only about 7 pages long. And basically, his theme is simply speaking to the rich exploiters of the poor, the fraudulent merchants, the venal judges, the corrupt priests and scribes around Samaria and Jerusalem. He warns them of the impending disaster that will occur because of their behavior. He tells them how they have abandoned the covenant. They have turned away from Yahweh. 3 times in his short prophecy, filled with reproaches and threats of punishment. Each time he does that, he concludes with promise and hope. One wonders where the promise and hope will come from. And he says, from a small village of Nazareth, or a small village not of Nazareth, but one west of Jerusalem, Bethlehem. A ruler will come from there, and somehow that ruler will not only save them, but save the whole world. That's the prophecy of Micah. He is relevant today as he was 700 years ago when he spoke to the people of Israel. He is relevant because the whole Middle East today is in a similar situation. And not only the whole Middle East, but even around the world, of people exploiting the poor, of fraudulent leaders, of venal judges, and even of priests and scribes who are corrupt. And we wonder today, what can be done about it? It seems as if it might be hopeless. Yet, can someone that comes from Nazareth, a ruler there, insignificant, change the world today? Edmund Burke declared that only requirement for evil to triumph is for a few people to remain silent and do nothing. Some say that's the way it is in the world today, that our politicians around the world seem to be silent in a way, or if they speak out, they really do not mean it, about all the lives that are being destroyed, not only physically, but emotionally and spiritually. What is the solution? One of the Psalms tells us to turn to the Lord and let us see the face of God and we'll be saved. If only the world today could see the face of God. And in seeing the face of God, they would see the face of humanity and they would be saved. But even in our own country, we have to be careful about not only seeing the face of God, but even speaking his name. Whether it be in our schools, in our government, or wherever it might be, is an impending disaster about to happen. We look at the acclamation of the gospel, or let's look at the epistle before, the letter to the Hebrews. Jesus came, God sent him, not just to offer the sacrifices of animals, as they were doing for hundreds of years, but to offer himself, to give up his will to the Father and do the Father's will. The world today can be concerned about doing God's will. That's the beginning of salvation. Let it be done to me according to your word, what Mary said. Oh, how much we need to do God's will rather than doing our own will that's different. In the gospel we have Elizabeth and Mary, both concerned about doing the will of God. How do we do the will of God? Do we really think about it each day? All the different little decisions that we make. Do we wake up in the morning and say, what is God's will for me to do? Oh, we have ideas about what we want to do. Sometimes what we want to do is good. Sometimes it's bad. Sometimes we don't even think about it. Even when it's good, what we want to do, is it God's will? If somehow we can live our lives according to God's will, what a difference it would make. But to do God's will requires us to renew ourselves frequently, especially during Advent. Have we thought about the sacrament of reconciliation? Examining our consciences and seeing where we make mistakes and where we do good things, and proclaim that to another in confession. Have we thought about spending a little more time in prayer? Have we thought about really being concerned about more people than ourselves? Those are the things, really, is all about doing God's will. That Jesus Christ ran his life simply by what his Father wanted him to do in heaven. Even Christ said, he didn't want to accept the chalice. Could he bypass it? But he said, thy will be done, rather than my will. So let us, as we pray to the Lord and pray for the people we loved ones at this liturgy, consider how we might change something in our own lives that will correspond more to God's will.